What's up, fellas? It's your guy, the original NZ MGTOW here, and today I'd like to discuss the topic of women's suffrage in New Zealand. Okay, so last week New Zealand celebrated the 125th anniversary since women won the right to vote in 1893. Now, New Zealand was the first country in New Zealand to give women the right to vote, and fair enough. I've got nothing against women having the right to vote. They are people after all. But the problem I do have is when the media jump on the bandwagon and they saturate all the channels, forums and outlets that they possibly can with articles, commentary, opinions around women's suffrage. It was 125 years ago. I think it's time we move on with all the other and pressing issues this country is facing currently on the table. Some examples include the housing crisis we've been struggling with for at least the last decade. We've got a homeless crisis. Last time I saw the stats, we had around 40,000 homeless. We've got a crime and drug problem that's growing. Just this year there's been 10 deaths from synthetic cannabis overdoses, and in the previous 5 years there were only 2. So yeah, we have a drug problem that's spiraling out of control with synthetic drugs coming to our shores. We also have gang proliferation. We've got, gangs from other countries coming here and setting up. Also, we've got a skilled worker shortfall. We've got high living costs and inflation. We've got wage stagnation. We have a burdened mental health system, and the suicide stats only getting worse each year. Last year we had 668 suicides in this country, and an alarming proportion of that figure were young Maori men. Sadly, we have a neglected and sagging infrastructure. Our roads are absolutely shocking. Last year we had 344 fatal crashes in 2017 in New Zealand. And on top of that we've got strikes, the nurses union, the teachers, bus drivers taking industrial action, and climate change, as well as a raft of other issues that each would need a video dedicated to them. So, with all that going on, all the media wants to turn their attention to recently is women's suffrage and what happened 125 years ago. I think it's time to leave that in the past. Stop pressing this oppressive narrative about a patriarchy that no longer exists. Certainly not in New Zealand. And I'd just like to say, I like to go to my local library about, around once a week to get some reading material, or use the computer, or read some newspapers. And when the place is not overrun by noisy, screaming school children, there's always something else going on. It's hardly ever a quiet place. But yesterday I was in the library and they were having a presentation on women's suffrage, and there were about 30 women, mostly older women, seated listening to another woman standing at the front giving a big speech about women's suffrage movement back in the late 19th century. And I was just quietly perusing the shelves for some reading material, and all I could hear in the background was this narrative about how oppressed women were, and, the patriarchy. And I thought, for heaven's sakes, it was 125 years ago. When are we going to move past this? So, I hope we do soon, because we've got more pressing issues on the table right now that this country's facing. And I think it's time women just move on, They were liberated 125 years ago. Anyway, that's my view. See ya.